Hello, and welcome to episode 74 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answers to. I'm Vib.
And I'm Sean, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about.
So who better to analyse a fictional war and come up with bogus reasons why someone won? I feel you could have done me dirtier there. That's actually not a bad line.
I could have done you dirtier. I'm too tired to come up with creative ways to absolutely torpedo you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you've been in a bad way, which gives me a major advantage. Or actually disadvantage, I think, in today's episode. But
you've quite bravely agreed to do a Game of Thrones episode, and yet somehow I'm going to end up having to just pass over to you a lot, which doesn't often happen on a Game of Thrones episode, I don't think.
I resent that accusation.
Okay. You can resent it all you want. Yeah. Doesn't stop it being true.
No, you just come up with fake knowledge and I'm too scared to fight you on it.
I'm going to say that that's the same thing.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean, it's weird because I feel we've recorded a lot of Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire episodes recently, but most of them are on Patreon. Done. So, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking that when we were talking about doing this episode. I was like, have we just done way too much Song of Ice and Fire recently?
But not in our regularly scheduled episodes.
No, I don't think we have done since we did the Robb Stark.
Yeah.
Winning the Iron Throne as Robb Stark episode.
And you intrigued me with this topic, so I kind of thought, let's go with it.
Yeah, this was a good one. So this episode, as many of our episodes do, sprang from a Reddit post that I read when I was lying in my sickbed, feeling sorry for myself. Which essentially, deathbed as it felt like at the time. So the question posed by this post was, at the Tower of Joy at the end of Robert's Rebellion, are Arthur Dayne, Gerald Hightower, and Oswald Went, three of Aerys Targaryen's kingsguard. Ned goes with 7 swords and comes back with 2 himself, and
some say that's a win.
Sorry?
I mean, it is a win.
That is a win. None of the kingsguard come back, so Ned technically wins. So, change the rules. You can send any 3 on Robert's side to the Tower of Joy to face those 3 kingsguard, Arthur Dayne, Gerald Hightower, and Oswald Went. Who do you send?
3 famous pushovers.
The conversations that followed were really interesting, and they got you and I talking. And that sort of topic spiraled out a little bit into, how the fuck does Robert win his rebellion?
Yeah, which I think is the bigger question of today's episode, right? I mean, I think we can start with the 3v3 at the Tower of Joy. I think from that, we discovered that there's no way that Robert should win. What are we going to just come out straight with it and say, the person you send is Brandon Stark from the future? And I think it's Brandon who walks into Howland Reed who wins you the fight. How about that for a start?
Howland Reed to kill. That's certainly an option.
There's a Reed Bran Stark connection, you know. It's meant to be.
There is.
The books will explore this where the show didn't. But no, failing that, who do you send? Do you have any 3 in mind that you would send to face?
So my
Dayne, Hightower, and Went.
So my front rank 3 is going to be, I think, Robert himself, Ned Stark, and Brynden Tully.
You went for Brynden Tully, okay. So walk me through... Yeah, walk me through those 3.
So the theory on which I'm working is that you need to basically slow down Arthur Dayne long enough for one of the other 2 to win their fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that those 2 can then gang up. Essentially the whole question is slowing down Dayne. And the only person I think you can send who can realistically do that is Robert Baratheon. Like, I don't think there's anyone else on Robert's side who has any chance at all.
I think Robert on a good day could possibly beat Dayne if he's fired up enough.
If he's fired up enough, if he knows Lyanna is in the tower,
and this. So it's really funny that you mentioned Ned Stark, because you've not brought him up before. Because I was thinking Ned for that same reason. I think he'd be also invested enough to want to win.
We also know that Ned actually survives the actual fight at the Tower of Joy.
Yes.
And
yeah, right, I feel Ned. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it is a 7-on-3, so you'd expect the 7 to win.
Yeah,
but even so, like...
I feel Ned is honourable enough to have faced Arthur Dayne straight on, and he survives, right? So I think Ned is actually an underrated swordsman.
I think Ned Stark as an underrated swordsman is probably a good shout, yeah. He was raised in the Vale, which is a high tradition of sort of knightly and martial ethos. If he's got ice as well, I mean, ice isn't necessarily the right sword for fighting Arthur Dayne, but it at least might a little bit negate the Dawn advantage.
Would he have used ice, I wonder?
I don't think he would, to be fair. I don't think he would have done, because I don't think ice is actually the right sword for that sort of combat.
It depends, right? Because, I mean, it's a great sword, but that historically means it's a very good fighting weapon. And it depends on how George Martin thought about it. How it's rendered in the show, completely useless.
But it is also a Valyrian greatsword.
Exactly. So I think if he had access to it, he probably would have gone for it, especially to fight.
You're going to want every advantage you can get.
Sorry, I'm thinking Dawnbreaker, but I'm thinking I've got Skyrim on the brain.
It's just called Dawn.
It's just Dawn, isn't it? Yeah,
it's just called Dawn.
So I rate Ned as a shout. I rate Robert as a shout because he's probably the most accomplished warrior on Robert's side.
Yeah, pretty much.
But then Brynden Blackfish. Talk me through Brynden Blackfish.
Brynden Blackfish was something of a panic choice, I will grant you. Because I'd actually forgotten who we'd spoken about.
I say because people, when people online talk about this and they talk about the Riverlands, I guess it's mostly Jason Mallister. I don't know, because Jason Mallister's best feats seem to be killing Ironborn, which I feel like isn't really that big of a deal. It's quite a low bar, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, he kills Roderick Greyjoy at the Siege of Pike. I'm like, okay. Like, what's his name? Jorah Mormont was first through the walls at the Siege of Pike. Like, everyone did well at Pike.
I did vaguely consider the Mormonts, but we'll come on to that later.
Actually, I think there's an argument. I don't know if Gior goes to the wall. But, yeah.
I wondered about him as well. But Brynden Blackfish, okay, I mean...
So the reason for Brynden Blackfish is he's in relative middle age, appointed Knight of the Bloody Gate. He's Robb Stark's commander of Robb Stark's vanguard. He's clearly an accomplished warrior, like when he's older. So take him back to closer to his prime. Just someone who is older than the other two, experienced, able to say, guys, this is how we win this fight. Robert, you don't need to beat Arthur Dayne. You just need to not die until I kill Oswald Went, and then Ned and I kill Hightower, and then the three of us take down Dayne. Like a cool head to help them plan.
So you're saying that the plan there is Robert fends off Dayne, Ned fends off Hightower, and Brynden kills Went.
Either what you do is that, or you put... I'm assuming that that's the quality order. Dayne, Hightower, Went. I think that's probably fair. Hightower is the Lord Commander. Exactly. It Went to me as a bit of an unknown quantity, I'm not going to lie. I think he's like an Aris Okart, right? He's probably a highly accomplished, skilled knight who's not in the Selmy, Jaime, Hightower, Dayne
but he
category.
He probably is, right? Because, I mean, if you're going to send 3 and only 3 people to guard...
That's my assumption.
...your paramour and, mother of your unborn child, you're going to pick the 3 best guys you know. And interestingly, he didn't send Selmy.
He doesn't send Selmy or Jamie. Jamie, he's not allowed to send because Aerys keeps Jamie close. Because Jamie is Aerys's bargaining chip against Tywin. But Jamie is also very young at this point.
That's the thing about this whole situation is Jamie's actually incredibly young at this point. What is it? It's like 20 years between this and the events of... Is Rob alive at this point? Rob Stark?
No, but Kat is pregnant.
Okay, so we're talking like 16...
15, 16 years, yeah. So Jamie's 17, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course, because Jon is born at this time, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, this is literally Jon's birth.
Yeah, of course. So I don't hate your choices. Could Ned Stark beat or knock down to Gerald Hightower? It's a great question, really, isn't it?
Because the other way that you do it is because if Ned has ice is such a big sword that it's able to generate a lot of reach. If you can generate a lot of reach, you can more easily stay alive for longer. So what you do is you stick Ned on Arthur Dayne and you put Robert on Oswald Went and assume that Robert's going to go through him like a hot knife. And then you've got Robert and Brynden taking down Hightower. Because Robert is your most valuable piece in this.
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if Robert is your kingpin.
No?
Robert's your most valuable warrior in a melee of, 1,000 or 1,000 men. Because I think he's just a bull.
Yeah.
In a 3v3, I don't know how accomplished he's going to be.
Yeah, I think that is probably a fair challenge.
He's the kind of guy who, like, when he charges into battle at the front of a vanguard, I think he's an absolute beast. But in a sort of, if you picture it as a sort of 3 people walking up to 3 other people and having a conversation and then fighting, I don't know.
I think that is a very, very good challenge. I think Robert's benefit is, as we said at the start, Lyanna.
Yes, I think that...
So that's going to give him drive. And also the fact he uses a warhammer rather than a sword is a huge advantage in a fight like this one.
Potentially. And he does beat Rhaegar, whom we know is... we know he's a fine swordsman. Like,
yeah,
maybe not Arthur Dayne levels, but
no, not Arthur Dayne. Accomplished.
Do we think he could beat Gerald Hightower? Rhaegar? I think he could. Right? Do you not think?
No. I think Rhaegar is like.
Sort of a
I think he's like Jason Mallister scale. I reckon. I don't think he's a top tier warrior. I don't think that's the point. I think doesn't Selmy say that he was like a dutiful soldier, but not born to it?
Well, yeah, he never really wanted it, I suppose.
No, but also he had no like natural skill at it. Like someone like Dane or Robert does.
But that's the thing, like who does Robert beat? That we in like a 1v1 that we think would put him at an Arthur Dayne level.
It's more just how people talk about him. I'm sure he kills people at the Battle of the Bells as well.
But he's also the king.
Any of their names.
Don't forget.
And he is the king.
So people are going to talk about him in a
that's true
favourable light, right?
So who's your 3? That's my 3, and we've interrogated it relatively deeply. Who would you send? Have you got anyone completely different?
I did toy with Robert and Ned a fair bit.
Yeah.
I considered the Blackfish, and I think this really goes into what we're probably going to come on to next. There's such a lack of anybody interesting on Robert's side. I think I would probably favour the great John Umber.
Okay.
I think he would certainly be able to fend off those three, any one of those three long enough, and I think he could beat. I could see him beating a Went.
I feel like we're probably being really unfair to Oswald Went.
Possibly, but I mean, these guys are not pushovers either. Right? I think Grey John Umber, even
that's fair.
16 years later, is still a force to be reckoned with.
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, then I'm genuinely at a loss though. I really like Ned for the same reason that you said. I think he's got skin in the game, which would make him fight harder, and I think that's true of Robert. But just to be different, I don't think I'd go Gregor. I think Gregor would actually get cut down pretty easily.
Gregor was my thought, but instead of Blackfish. But I think, especially this early in his life, you've just got a really strong teenager who, if they go up against anyone who actually knows what they're doing, all right, Gregor is absolutely going to punch his way through a front line, even at this age. But
he lacks the nous, I think.
No, and he doesn't. You're right, and he doesn't have the experience that we see when he fights Oberyn, for example, because he hasn't had to learn it yet.
And let's not forget, Oberyn actually completely shits on him.
Yeah, but he does things in that fight. Gregor does relatively smart things, like tries to put the sun behind him and things like, and tries to stay out of reach and all of that, like things that I don't think 16-year-old Gregor would do.
Yeah. So I'm not. So I think my three, if I'm going to be different to you, the Great John Umber, Jon Royce, probably.
I like Jon Royce,
and I think just the only other person I can think of who might have a shot is Lynn Corbray.
Sorry, say that again. Lynn Corbray.
Lynn Corbray, yeah. Only because we know he dueled and killed a Kingsguard. that's literally all I've got to go on. The Corbray name goes some way.
Who does he duel and kill?
He duels and kills Lewin Martell.
Yeah. Lewin of Dorne, you're right, sorry. He does. Yeah, no, he's a good track. I forgot he killed Lewin.
In my heart, I do think that Ned and Robert probably especially as a duo.
So what
in that situation, are probably the right people to send.
What about Ned, Robert, and Lynn Corbray?
Yeah, I think I probably would swap out the Blackfish for either Lynn or Jon or Great John Umber. I actually think the Blackfish would be my sixth choice.
That's fair. I don't really rate Lynn Corbray, or Corbray, but I think that might just be because I've a little bit bought Littlefinger's malice towards him.
So easily swayed.
I really am. It's a problem. I just feel like he might be all talk, because it's a very different thing killing someone like in the midst of battle than it is in a stand-up duel.
So it's my same argument against Robert in some ways, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's the Robert argument made in
reverse. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, failing that, I think you do bring Howland Reed and hide him in a bush,
Howland Reed in a bush is the other option.
Howland Reed in a bush walked into by Bran. That's the real answer, obviously. But
Gerald Hightower is like, the rules were you could bring 3. And Ned's just like, we did, and then a dart hits it's Gregor Hightower in the face. I like that. That'd be really funny.
And it probably is sort of how it went down, right? I think that the show's rendition of that fight is probably not completely completely wrong.
I don't think Arthur Dayne is killed in a fair fight. I'm not 100% certain that Arthur Dayne is killed, but I'm fairly sure he's not killed in a fair fight by Howland Reed.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's a 7v3, you can imagine that. Well, I mean, yeah, 2-on-1. Can you bring down Gerald Hightower? Gerald Hightower is an absolute beast.
Well, Gerald Hightower, if you think about when Jamie's thinking about all of the few people that he rates as swordsmen, Gerald Hightower, Barristan Selmy, and Arthur Dayne are really the only ones that he considers.
But that's Jamie.
Anyway, serious. No, but that's my point. Like Jamie, who George R. R. Martin has said is the best swordsman.
No, absolutely. But what I'm saying is
Gerald Hightower is in the same category as Dayne.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that these are his role models, right, at the time. So
that's true.
That makes sense. But that doesn't mean that he's not right. I think he'd be smart enough to sort of retrospectively go, actually, he was a bit of a pushover. I think Hightower.
Yeah, because he rates Great John, for example, even though they're on opposite sides.
Yeah, but I think in a 7v3, because these are not 7 idiots, right?
No, it's 7.
And you have the numbers. So I think
knights.
Ned or someone would have said, "Guys, we'll like send 5 people."
Yeah,
on the weakest, right? Just get him out of the game.
We absolutely rush Went.
Yeah, I'll hold off Dane. Someone else hold off Hightower. Like literally long enough. The 5 seconds it'll take for 5 people to kill Oswald Went.
And then 2 of you have already died.
So I think in that situation it's easier. Whereas 3-on-3, you do have to play tactic. And I think that the issue with it is, right, the 3 kingsguard will have fought side by side a lot, so I think they're quite a well-oiled machine. So in a 3v3, even if you bring the 3 best guys, I just don't think you're going to do it.
I think they have you're right, they have a huge advantage because they know each other's strengths and weaknesses so well. They will fight really well together in a way that any 3, which is again perhaps an argument in favour of Ned and Robert because they grew up together.
Yeah, but as well, somebody I saw said John Arryn, which I thought interesting, completely based in fiction, but as you said, the Vale, right? I mean, it's a knightly region.
Yeah, I reckon John Arryn's probably fine, but he's never really reckoned as he's never thought of retrospectively as a great warrior. He was a statesman.
Isn't that why we should consider Mallister? Or certainly
because he is thought of that way. Bronzion, I think, is a better shout there because he, apart from anything else, he has like runic bronze armor, which is pretty cool. And he also beat 7 shades of shit out of Ned. When isn't there a? Doesn't Sansa remember
right?
when he? No, it's at Winterfell, I think.
Oh yeah, in a just sort of training battle.
He comes to visit and he beats the crap out of Ned and out of.
Yeah, but Ned never shows. Ned never fights in earnest, right? Unless he has to.
No, but I feel like he would probably not want to be put on his ass by a ghast if he could avoid it. I think Bronzion actually we might be sleeping there.
Yeah, maybe Robert and Bronzion, and then
I don't know about Jason Mallister.
I still like. I think the Great John. I think if you send the Great John and Bronzion, and you tell them both, as in you're Robert, and you say, "I'm going to take on Dane and Hightower long enough for you to kill Went," and then
I think Robert's dead. I think Robert's dead.
I think he's too stubborn. I think he'll be seriously wounded, but I think he's too stubborn to die because he wants to get to Lyanna.
2v1 Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower. Robert is dead.
Plus, I still have this sneaking suspicion that I'm sure that Dane received orders not to actually win.
You think?
I think so. I feel like, I don't know what I'm basing that on, but I do feel like there's a sort of it's a failsafe, right? You want Lyanna's child to end
There's
up
a reason,
with Ned Stark.
There's a reason Arthur Dayne is there, right? Because Arthur Dayne, realistically, is capable of turning the tide at the Trident.
Yes.
Right, if he stands beside Rhaegar at the Trident as Rhaegar's best friend...
See, and that's the thing. And I don't think Dane is at the Tower of Joy because he's a great swordsman.
No, I think he's
there because he's Rhaegar's best friend.
Rhaegar's best friend and the only man that Rhaegar knows that he can trust entirely.
To make the right decision, yes.
Yeah.
And I think if Ned Stark shows up...
I think you might be right, you know.
Yeah, I think there's an element of sort of like, yeah. You know, to sort of sell the story, you're going to have to put Dane to the sword. But as you say, does he actually die? I'm also not convinced he does.
Because Ned Stark returns Dawn to Starfall. He doesn't.
Yeah, he would anyway, right?
Yeah, probably. But he's also lost 4 companions that he's travelled all the way through Westeros.
Yeah,
and fought a war alongside. Like, it's effectively, you could take it as Weregild.
But has he?
But has he?
Who are the 4 people he's lost?
I don't know their names.
Yeah, maybe no one does, right? Maybe Ned just said, yeah, I brought 7 dudes, when actually it was just him and
Barbary Dustin's husband. Is there a Malister?
But this is the thing. So one of the things that I really rated online was people just being like, yeah, there's like 3 men-at-arms that are ridiculously good swordsmen and really strong, but just never made a name because they were, you know, born too lowly. I was like, that's a really good shout. Because those people did exist, I'm sure. I'm sure the best swordsman in Westeros is probably not Arthur Dayne, just some random dude who fought like 1,000 battles.
Right, so he's gone with... It's Howland Reed, Ethan Glover, Mark Risewell, Theo Wall, Martin Castle, and William Dustin.
Okay, Castle, fair enough, but the others are just made up. Like, these are complete ruses.
William Dustin is real because that's Barbary Dustin's husband.
Yeah, sure, but he's in on it.
Ethan Glover is
also the real. Well, the Glover family is certainly real.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe Mark Risewell is a person who's ever existed.
It's to inflate the numbers. Yeah, okay, fine. Maybe Ned did actually go.
I think there is a very like the people who are at the Tower of Joy for the Kingsguard make no sense. Why is the Lord Commander there rather than on the battlefield with the heir or at
with the
King's
king.
Landing with the king? No, I know that the in-narrative answer is, because it's Rhaegar's heir who's there. But no, it's not. Rhaegar's heir is in King's Landing. Aegon is in King's Landing.
Yeah.
And he's Rhaegar's heir. Like, there is no reason for the Lord Commander to be there. There is no reason for Arthur Dayne to be there. It's just... It seems silly to say, we don't know what happened at the Tower of Joy, but, like, we really don't. And there's so much more that we don't know than how did Ned win, I guess, is the point.
That's why I like my theory that they were meant to lose. They went to put up a good fight, make it believable, but ultimately I think their mission was to make sure that Rhaegar's heir, well, Rhaegar's son with Lyanna, went with the right people.
But why not just...
I think so. For example, I think if Robb, Bronzion, and Leland Corbray show up, I think they get absolutely murdered. Yeah. I think if anybody shows up that isn't Ned Stark, I think you're in big trouble.
Well, that's probably true.
But I'm not really basing that on any facts.
No,
that would be ridiculous on this show. But
I can see the argument. I think the idea that Rhaegar would order his best friend to lose a fight to the death is a bit weird. But I think there's probably something there. Given
the circumstances, I'm not sure it is, though, right? Because I think if Arthur Dayne sees Ned Stark strolling up to the Tower of Joy, I think Arthur Dayne knows that Rhaegar is dead.
Yeah, but then can't Arthur Dayne say, "I need to show you something"?
Yeah, maybe.
We have your sister inside. Please come in with me. You have to see this.
But for all we know, that is what happened. And then Arthur, Gerald, and Oswald went to Essos and had a great time.
I guess that's my point. Like, I think that might be more likely to be what happened than that.
Yeah,
they were under orders to lose the fight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's. Yeah. I'll accept that interpretation. Yeah, I think that is actually more likely to have happened.
Yeah. Do you slight pivot? Because I think we've got the answer to the how do you win the 3v3.
One name I wanted to throw in, which I thought of before, was
go for it.
Someone like Syria Farrell.
I think that's a really good suggestion.
I mean, I don't know whose side he'd be on, so I don't even know if Robert would be within his power to summon him into the fight. But I like him because I feel he might well beat Arthur in a 1v1. It's hard to say, right? Because he's such an unknown quantity in Westeros. Yeah.
Yeah.
But his strength is that I feel like he knows a lot more about Westerosi sword fighting than they would know about his style, and I think he'd be able to adapt better.
That's potentially true.
But major glass cannon, obviously.
He's a huge glass cannon because he doesn't wear armor. And also, sorry, I've just realised that my microphone is picking up weird background noise. I don't know what. Like, Arthur Dayne's wearing armor. And
yeah, no, but
Syria
I
Farrell,
think
like, getting through armor with a thin-bladed sword is pretty difficult, especially if the guy wearing it is wielding a magic sword.
Yeah, no, true. But you don't put him up against. You still put Robert up against Dane, and then somebody else up against Hightower. I think Syrio very quickly would kill Wench just because he's such an unknown quantity. And then I think he sort of fulfills a Howland Reed-esque quality.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Outside shout. It's hard for me to gauge how old Siri would be at this point.
No, I think if we assume that he's the retired First Sea Lord 15 years later...
Probably old enough, right?
Probably old enough, yeah.
Maybe even too old.
Yeah, but I think he's a good shout.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in as an honourable mention.
No, I think it's worth asking. Just before we pivot to our sort of wider question, do you think that Arthur Dayne is narratively problematic?
I just told me we forgot about Darkstar, but he's of the night, so we shan't talk about him. Do I think that Arthur Dayne is narratively problematic? I don't know. Why?
Okay, fair enough. I suppose the question is, has George R. R. Martin built a character in the backstory like Arthur Dayne, who looms far too large over the rest of the story for the relatively small part that they play in it?
I don't think he does. I think he's just billed as like the most accomplished swordsman possibly of all time in Westeros. I guess he's maybe hard to pit against some of the earlier.
Yeah, I was wondering if you opened the 3v3 up to historic characters as well, does it change the calculation?
Yeah, I'd be out of my depth at this point.
Yeah.
But I suspect that there'd be some members from some of those wars. I mean, there's so many wars, right? I think
I'd like Maegor the Cruel, Daemon Blackfire, and Fireball, please and thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Aemon the Dragon Knight.
Or send Bloodraven,
Exactly. Stops being a sensible question.
Exactly. Shit like that it's just really hard to say. So I think it adds to the lore, right? And I guess we're going to come on to this, but I think Robert's rebellion beating not only one of the most beloved princes of all time, but also the most accomplished swordsman of the time. With an entourage of some of the other most accomplished, like that kingsguard that Ares has at that time is absolutely ridiculous.
It really is,
and Robert beats it, and I think it actually narratively helps Robert's story, right? And I think it sort of it grounds his kingship in some way. Like he doesn't win like a petty war. He wins like ridiculous war. He beats like all these larger than life heroes, as you say, to do it. So he must have had a just cause, almost, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. It builds a narrative for his kingship. He won the throne against all the odds, against Rhaegar and Arthur Dayne and Prince Lewin and the White Bull and all of these, as you say, larger than life figures, to overthrow the cruel king and install himself as the sort of glorious and true king. So no, I think you're right. I think there is.
I think Dayne is an important part of that. I think
Dayne is an important part of that. I just, every time I hear you see or read conversations like this one, Arthur Dayne absolutely dominates it above and beyond anyone else.
No, but rightly so. But I equally think there's not that many scenarios where there's like, oh, here's the battle of so-and-so, and then Arthur Dayne showed up and beat 1,000 men.
No, that's true.
Arthur Dayne is very much you don't take him on 1v1 because you're going to lose. And I think that's perfectly acceptable. Does he ever really feature any of the big battles? Yeah, I mean, you must do. I just can't really think of...
Not really. His biggest thing is like the Kingswood Brotherhood, I think. He doesn't really feature in the War of the Nine Penny Kings because that's Barristan Selmy, who kills Melis the Monstrous. He must be there, but not really. No.
Well, I think Arthur Dayne is the embodiment of a kingsguard, right? He's the guy you want next to your king, or next to you if you are the king, because he'll beat any would-be assassin very handily.
Yeah, he beats anyone coming through that door.
But you don't send Arthur Dayne into a massive melee, because what's the point?
No, you send Robert.
You send Robert, exactly. Yeah. So no, I think Arthur Dayne actually is very well written in that respect, because he inspires respect and fear, and I think therefore having Ned and co beat him in the way they did is almost adding to that whole legend.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It was just a thought that occurred to me as I was putting together some notes for this episode. Just is Arthur Dayne doing damage to the narrative? I don't think he is, but I wanted to ask the question.
His sword almost more than him, I would argue, because his sword is sort of quasi law breaking.
Well, it's just the classic. It's a meteor iron sword. It's not Valyrian steel. It's something different again.
But it's just weird that it hasn't featured since in any meaningful capacity, right?
Well, no, it's because Edric Dayne is too young, basically, because George R. R. Martin can't do time properly.
But this is why Darkstar could pick it up, you know.
Yeah, but no one else would be okay with Darkstar picking it up.
No, this is true.
Because he's such a douche.
Your hatred for Darkstar is just always...
I don't understand. Darkstar is probably the biggest victim of George's inability to finish the series. Like, from a single characterization perspective. Because we've had far too long to sit and pore over, I am of the night. And just be like,
and then he walks into the night and was never seen again.
You're such a douche.
Turns out he was Arthur Dayne in a different life.
Yeah. Exactly. We didn't talk about your suggestion that you send Roose Bolton.
Roose Bolton, yeah, but you definitely only have to send him when it's nighttime.
Yeah, because he's a face-swapping vampire.
Yes. He is of the night. He genuinely is of the night.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's be honest, I think Roose gets smacked 3 ways to hell.
I think even also Roose Bolton
I think
is
all
of these...
5 other people would turn around just to beat him up.
Sure. Everyone's drawing swords, and then they also look at Roose Bolton licking a dagger or something, and they're like, "Should we just put a pin
get
in
this guy out of the game?
We'll deal with this first."
Let's sub in Howland Reed after this, and we'll make a fight of it.
Arthur Dayne's like, "I've got a squire back there. If you guys want him instead."
Hey, you know what?
Jerry,
I think Arthur Dayne's squire. If you switch sides, I'll probably take him.
It's my sister's boy, Jerry. Like he's a bit slow, but he's not that.
He'll do. So right. I think, as you outlined, I think that the 3v3 at the Tower of Joy is an interesting exercise because it emphasizes just how up against it Robert is, right?
Does it though? This is
in a sort of renowned knights and names of valor and blah blah blah. I think yes.
Okay. I suppose it could, but
if Robert just has 1,000 men at arms who are like, yes, I am really with this guy, versus 1,000 men at arms who are like, yeah, Ares is a bit mad.
That's my point.
You know,
right? So, yeah, we all love to talk about. Sorry, to pull back to your question. Yes, Robert is really up against it. Robert's Rebellion is an incredible feat, but wars aren't won. It's almost your point. Wars aren't won by Arthur Dayne or Gerald Hightower or Jaime Lannister or any of these individual people striding into battle. They're just won by the guy who's better at leading armies of blokes called Steve. So
Tom, Dick, and Harry. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what Robert is really good at. He's a phenomenal leader of men. His ability to turn enemies to ally, his ability to keep going and drive his men on when others would have stopped. That's what wins Robert's Rebellion. And the fact that the other side have all the big names sort of doesn't matter when faced with that. Because Arthur Dayne, it doesn't matter how good Arthur Dayne is, if the other guy brings 50 blokes, Arthur Dayne is dead. And
as we just discussed, Arthur Dayne is never in a fight. Nor any of the kingsguard, I feel like, right?
Until the Trident.
Except the one that linked
Selmy kills Melis the Monstrous on the Stepstones. But yeah, broadly speaking, you're right. Like,
yeah, so I think Robert just wages his war
really well. Really, really well. And to an extent, the king's side, so Rhaegar and Aerys' side, is incredibly weak. Despite looking strong. Because there's absolutely no personal loyalty to Aerys.
Yeah.
So when Rhaegar
it'd be massively
dies,
debilitating, right? Because I think even Rhaegar, in his heart of hearts, because if nothing else, we seem to understand he's probably quite a good guy in, quotation marks.
He's not his father.
Yeah, so he's a bit like, what the fuck is this war about,
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
He rides to the Trident to put down Robert's Rebellion because he has to.
Yeah.
Because he's part of the royal family. It's an assault on the legitimacy of the monarchy and all of that. But he puts his helmet on and says to Jaime, when I come back, we're going to need to make changes because my dad is out of control.
Yeah.
Like, he gets it. But the problem is Robert breaks him in half.
Yeah. Because
on the Trident.
That's the thing, because those guys, they're fighting for a cause that is, to their minds, just, right?
Exactly. And the moment Rhaegar dies, Tywin's like, well, writing's on the wall. I could swing this one way or the other, but I don't really like Aerys. so I guess I'll sack King's Landing. Cool, job's done.
Yeah. No, Rhaegar's main failing in the war is not killing his own father. And that's quite a horrible thing to have failed, right?
Not making it clear before he dies that he is going to oust his father. Like, that should be his rallying cry.
Yeah.
Like, because that's how Robert pulls people to his banner, is to say, I will be a better king than Aerys. And people that Robert is beating are fighting for Aerys. So they've got no incentive if they like, oh, you killed 3 of my blokes, I surrender. Because the alternative is the guy who feeds people to his pyromancers.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. Do we have any sort of gauge in terms of overall army size?
Well, I'm sure we could if we did some research, but that's both beyond and beneath us.
Yeah, and it's always the difficulty with something like this, because my mind always instinctively goes to a setting like, for example, The Lord of the Rings, where everybody in the service of Fingolfin, for example, is like, we're on the same side here, because it's such concrete things like good and evil.
Yeah.
Whereas in A Song of Ice and Fire, it's not that, right? Because as you say, the guy like Tywin on Aerys' side up until he's no longer on Aerys' side, and that's a major problem.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think if you look at the way the realms split, so Robert gets the north, the Stormlands, the Riverlands, and the Vale, and Aerys Rhaegar get the Crownlands, the Reach, basically, and
Dorne.
Sort of the Westerlands, and sort of Dorne. But the Westerlands more or less stay out of the fight, and the Reach sort of just keeps Storm's End sieged. This is the other thing. If Mace Tyrell makes it to the Trident, then probably things are very different. But Mace Tyrell does the sort of, I'm going to wait and see who wins. Yeah. And I'll siege down Storm's End, and then if Robert wins, I'll just bend the knee and Robert will be okay with it. And if Aerys wins, then woohoo, I kept Storm's End out of the fight. So I think Robert is probably outnumbered. But the other side of it is those kingdoms have all been plotting for a long time. You've got the Southron Ambitions plot, where, Brandon was going to marry Cat and all of these things to tie those kingdoms more closely together.
And Aerys is batshit insane, which I think is not a secret.
And Aerys is batshit insane, which is incredibly debilitating in a ruler.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, I originally sort of went into thinking, Robert's at a major disadvantage, but perhaps he isn't. He could have soloed this whole thing, could have won the war, could have beat Arthur Dayne.
I think he is at a massive... He is at a massive disadvantage when it starts, right? Because he is sort of in a similar way to Aerys, such the linchpin of the rebellion, that you have things like the Battle of the Bells, where Robert is running from house to house, trying to hide from the army, trying to find and kill him, because if you kill Robert, you end the rebellion. The problem becomes, it turns out that Robert's just really good at winning battles.
Yeah.
He wins 3 battles in a day, and each time he wins a battle, the losing lord bends the knee to him, and then Robert raises them back to their feet and embraces them, and then they join Robert, and that's how Robert wins. Basically, he wins by beating people and then turning them to his side. He's basically an orc.
Yeah, it's a shame that he ruled like one as well.
Yeah, exactly.
To think, if only he'd actually been up for being a king and not just an instrument of change. If he had just handed the realm to Jon Arryn proper, as in your king now, imagine where we'd be.
He gets where we'd be. He gets so close, right? Like, his small council is actually quite close to being good.
Yeah.
Jon Arryn, by all accounts, would make a good hand. Stannis makes sense on the council, as does Renly-ish, but he's probably a bit young. Barristan is a great shout for a small council. Varys...
You probably are missing Ned.
Slight problem. I think you're missing Ned.
Yeah.
I would have Ned instead of Renly. And I would have literally anyone other than Littlefinger. Littlefinger is the problem.
Littlefinger is definitely a problem. And, I mean, you're not going to have Ned, because I think if you're Robert, you know that Ned doesn't want to do it. So...
No, you need Ned in Winterfell.
You're a good friend, and you
need Ned in Winterfell.
Yeah. Littlefinger's a problem, and also just the fact that he married Cersei was just...
But you needed Tywin. You needed Tywin.
But you don't have to marry his family to know... To assuage something. I think you can just tell Tywin's like, yeah, I know you're important, and I'm going to make you influential in the kingdom. Like, just
why not make? Well, the problem I was going to say, why not make Tywin your Master of Coin? But Tywin has been Hand, so Master of Coin is a demotion, and also making rich people Master of Coin is a really bad idea.
Yeah, I think you just tell Tywin is like, listen, these people all support me. You're not in any position. I need you to make the kingdom prosperous, and you need me to, not hate you. So,
yeah,
I think we can make an agreement here.
Also, you could just say to Tywin, "You had children murdered. I don't want you anywhere near me." But Robert isn't capable of doing that. He's so close, and yet so far away from being a good king.
It's really sad, almost, right? Because he fought a just war. He could have been he could have made for a great kingdom.
He could have pointed the kingdom in the right direction. He could have had around him people who wanted him to do well and wanted the kingdom to do well. But he just, basically because of Littlefinger, and also his own inability to see beyond the next 5 minutes. Or his lack of desire to, perhaps.
I think I'd be kinder to him, I think he lost out on a future that he had dreamt of with Lyanna, etc.
I don't think...
Possibly made even worse, because Ned being the honourable man that he is, maybe he did actually tell Robert.
Not a chance.
What was up?
Not a chance.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really make sense, does it? But
no, it doesn't.
But that would have shattered his world to such an extent that he would have made a fucking rubbish king.
I
think heartbreak and a general sort of nonplussedness.
He never wanted to be king.
Yeah, he's just like, what do I do?
Happy.
My one big thing was swinging my warhammer, and now I'm not even doing that. So
yeah. He would have been perfectly happy as the Lord of Storm's End, going to melees and beating the shit out of people every few weeks, and then just drinking and hunting as Lord of Storm's End.
Oh, fuck, maybe you should put Stannis on the throne instead.
Stannis would be a terrible king. Ned would be the best king. Ned would just be the best king.
John probably, no?
Because Jon Arryn is married to Lysa. So if you get Jon, you get Littlefinger. That's the problem. That's why Littlefinger is on the small council.
Yeah, true.
Because Lysa wants him there.
Ned Stark for king, and this could have all been avoided.
Ned Stark
he wouldn't have wanted to do it.
But that's why he should have. That's why he should have.
All right, Dumbledore.
Those best suited to rulership.
I think that's a good time to wrap it up, isn't it, really?
I think so.
So we easily win the Tower of Joy in a 3v3. And
by sending Howland Reed to hide in bushes.
Yes.
And Robert wins his war by being awesome at winning wars. God, we've absolutely nailed it this week.
Highbrow shit.
So on that, thanks for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. No doubt, we said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. As ever, feel free to let us know, rate the podcast wherever you can, check out our Patreon for bonus content, and come chat to us on Discord.
If you're lucky, we might just argue with you in one of our upcoming episodes. If you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. Come back next time for some more absolute nonsense.